We always talk about, look at how far we've come. 4 years ago, none of us knew how to use digital content. We didn't even know that that existed 4 years ago. And look where we are today. BOLD stands for Blended and Online Learning in Day Schools, and we were one of 5 schools selected by the Avichai Foundation, Kohelet, and the AJE to be a part of this initiative. We knew it meant incorporating digital learning into our curriculum. We never knew that it would take on, a life of its own and really encourage us to look at how we were teaching.
I think what made us really interested from the beginning in applying for the BOLD program was really the ability and the luxury to be able to really experiment. And the ability for students to really own their own learning rather than just be a receptacle where they're just listening. Because the data shows that the more engaged a student is and the more they feel empowered to own their learning, the more they will remember 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road.
In a personalized learning environment, the main focus and the focus that you never lose sight of is who the learner is. How do they learn best? What do they need to maximize their learning? It's not a one-size-fits-all model, and it's not a model where you're going to have quiet classrooms with the children sitting with their hands clasped on their lap. It's a place where there's a lot of action, and learning is actually very fun.
They know when they look at the board and we start our rotations, they know what they're doing first, where they're going next, when they're doing their digital, when they're doing their independent work. It's a really great skill, and it also gives them a lot of confidence because they really feel like they know what they're doing. They know where to go.
Some students are working digitally. Some students are doing skill-based work with the teacher. Another group of students might either be working independent, they might be doing something collaborative. It kind of looks different based on the day and what the students need and what their skill level is at. And knowing how to tap into a student's unique and individual strengths has allowed them to really flourish in ways we never could have imagined.
It allows us to be more independent, I feel like.
I think having more control for the future is going to be helpful because moving on to high school and college, we're going to have to be more independent and we're going to have to do things by ourselves without the teacher just telling us what to do.
When we initially began our personalized learning journey, we had to do a lot of professional development to really get them on board, even with as much as what is blended and how do we define what personalized learning is and what does that look like in Moriah.
I was definitely excited, but I was also a little bit nervous because I've been teaching since the 1980s and I was used to traditional frontal style teaching.
I wasn't worried about the educational, the content, or the curriculum, but the technology, woo. But, baby steps, everybody helps. Us elders need a little more time to learn it, but when you learn it, you feel really good.
Better Lesson is a program which it's personalized professional development. I meet with my coach Roman every 2 weeks on Google Hangout. And we are able to split our screen and share and talk. He sometimes gives me assignments. He's shown me different computer programs, different ways, models, lessons to be able to use with my class to really transform it.
Finding the time to do proper professional development is something that we struggled with greatly at the beginning. We've learned over time and have made decisions as a school to carve out protected time for our teachers to be able to meet both with us as a leadership team and also on grade level to allow teachers time for planning, time for talking, time for trying, time for looking at data, time for all the things that a teacher needs to be able to do in a personalized learning environment.
In the past, when we planned our activities, we would do it in isolation. Now we have a whole team of people that we bounce ideas off of, we share, we discuss, and I think our planning is certainly much, much better, more creative, more innovative.
I had a funny conversation last week in the teacher's room, in one of these spontaneous conversations where a teacher looked me in the face and she said, "Lauren, if you told me that I had to lose my co-teacher and go back to standing in front of a room full of children, telling them all to do the same page at the same time, I would turn around, I would walk out, and I would never come back."
One of the things that's just absolutely wonderful about it is no matter the size of the class, you're really getting all the advantages of a small class. I have face-to-face time with almost every student, almost every day. Any new material that I'm teaching to 4 or 5 kids at a time.
They can participate more often, get their questions answered quicker, give their opinions easier. They don't have to wait.
The overwhelming majority of our students feel that this model speaks to them better as learners and that they feel like their teacher is teaching to them and not to a large group of students with different learning needs kind of all over the map.
Achieve 3000 is a digital reading program. There are hundreds of stories that you can tap into to help children with their comprehension. Each child works at their own pace, and it measures and adjusts the article to the growth in their reading level. They start at their Lexile or reading level, and after 4 successful attempts, their reading level or Lexile is raised a few points.
I have a huge list of topics to choose from, and we've been able to connect those topics to other things that we're doing in the classroom. So, for example, if we're working on plants, there's tons of articles that we can connect to plants or to weather or to how weather affects plants, so that they're doing a lot of really critical thinking, really looking at the text, really learning how to use text and answer questions about it in very different ways than they would normally do as a second grader. They are loving it. They are really being forced to think.
Well, you could take your time on the computer, as much time as you want on each question, so it's a lot easier. I learned better and I feel smarter.
Talam is a program which teaches Tarbut, Am Yisrael, Jewish culture, and holidays. And what iTalam did was it took all of this and it created digital content, which allows us to teach the children in a more modern, updated way with animated stories, games, different activities, and just makes it much more exciting.
The technology gives us more ways to do things. Instead of just having a teacher just telling you something, they can give you a PDF, or you can have a blend space or Google Classroom or a form, so that everything is more versatile and it's better for students individually.
I think it makes learning math more fun by a lot.
It used to be if you had 20 students in a class and you had a student watching you for 40 minutes, did you really know how much of the lesson they understood, whether they're paying attention, what they're getting, what they're not getting? The cool thing about technology is that you can now, look at the data and check a 40-minute class and see simple things like how long did it take them to solve a problem. If it took them 8 minutes to solve a problem, either they were spacing out, or maybe they're really struggling with that specific problem, and you can follow up on that.
Last week even, there was a lesson I taught on decimals, and I noticed that there were 3 or 4 kids who really didn't get it. So I said, if anyone else feels that they don't know what's going on and they need a little bit of extra help, come on to the front and we're gonna do this lesson all over again. But what it allowed for is for me to see, oh wait, kids aren't getting it. They can't just move on. If you don't understand something, you can't just go on to the next lesson.
Our report cards look very different today than they did in the past, right? It used to be you got an A, B, C. What does that mean, right? We don't know. Nobody knows, right? A means that my kid's doing well. B, not as well. That's all we knew. But it said nothing about, are they mastering the material? We didn't think so much about, very specifically what they need to master to be able to say, we have successfully gone through 3rd grade. Now, it's critical because the data forces us to ask those questions in a very positive way.
We start by looking first at the individual student, and we look at his growth against himself, and we see, is this child progressing? And then we look at how does he compare to the rest of the class. We then look at the class as compared to the rest of the grade in Moriah. We also have the ability to look at the grade in Moriah against national norms, and we're really able to track a student's growth along many different lines, which gives us a really complete picture of that student's academic profile.
It has been an incredible experience for the parent body here. Through real-time assessments, we get to see exactly how they're doing, as opposed to waiting an entire semester or 2 semesters to recognize some sort of issue that has to be addressed. These things are now done in real time.
If you stopped a student in our hall, they would be able to tell you what reading level they're at, what their latest MAP score was, what their Lexile is. These are terms that didn't even exist for us 4 years ago, and it really has empowered our students to take ownership of their learning and really strive for heights that they never could have imagined.
You're able to see the maturity in children today at Moriah in a whole different way than you were just, 5-10 years ago. They're contributing to the discussion as opposed to being the subject or the object that's being focused on.
We feel like we have been the recipient of, the Bold Grant, and do feel a certain amount of responsibility to give back to the Jewish day school field.
We have invited groups of educators to visit Moriah, mostly based on the fact that they have expressed an interest in learning about how Bold is implemented in Moriah, what it looks like in our classrooms, a real life experience. What I hope comes out of this educator's experience is that other people will take what we have learned from our Bold journey and be able to implement it in their schools, because I think that any school that will start doing it even in small steps will really be very, very fulfilled from it.
The changes that have occurred here with personalized learning have really empowered my own son. He could reach as high as he wants to reach. There will be support and there'll be a curriculum waiting. It's really amazing.